Hello, hello, one and all. We are back rating every Premier League team season, and today we have got Spurs. Nice. 17th in the Premier League. Goes without saying, this is a bit shit, you know. As a team that were in the Champions League final, was it, 7 years ago? The fact that they've now finished 17th and are actually quite fortunate to stay in the league is a very far cry from what they once were. Yeah, the drop off from Spurs has been funny. It's been, like, I mean, I don't really have much against Spurs. I wanted them to go down from a sense of that it's just so good for the story. Like, a massive team like Spurs. Spurs are just so much bigger than all three of these teams. Like, the fact that Spurs could have gone down is amazing. And if Spurs did go down, I think that would have been very funny to see them in the Championship next season. The memes would have been great. So from that end, I wanted Spurs to go down, but I mean, I'm not particularly arsed they survived anyway. Yeah, it's been a tumultuous season for the boys in white down there in London. Three managers, and yeah, the first two really flattering to deceive, really putting them in the situation that they were. And at one point, they were sat in the relegation zone in 18th place. But yep, Deserby come in and dragged them out, and I'll be rating this season. This will be going on Substack tomorrow, I think. By the time of recording this, I've got about 15 minutes before I need to leave for work, so I'm going to go to work and edit this afterwards. It will be early on Tuesday morning by the it's Tuesday now, early Wednesday morning by the time this goes up. So Substack probably will happen in the midday on Wednesday. So yeah, let's get into it, boys. Now for performance, Spurs are getting a 1 out of 10, and that shouldn't surprise anyone because with the quality of squad that they've got and the ability of the players there, they should not be finishing in 17th place. I mean, that obviously goes without saying. Like, you don't need me to tell you that. Like, it's not like expert information here. But the season started actually quite positively, you'd argue. I mean, there's some good results here. Obviously, beating Burnley comfortably on the first day is a good start. Away at City, a good win there. You beat West Ham as well, and a win to the first game of the Champions League. And you start to think, okay, this is looking all right now. And then it starts to tail off a little bit. One draw against Brighton, which isn't great, and then Wolves' first point of the season is poor, and then you just start to get to a lot of average. Really, this is where the wheels really started to fall off for Thomas Frank. We put them to bed away at the Tottenham Hotspurs Stadium, and then poor performance against Chelsea. This is just awful. This loss here to Arsenal, and then it starts to get to a lot of like this. This loss to PSG, losing to Fulham, and then these games you're not looking very convincing. And this is a Forest team that at the time were looking nailed on for relegation that they've just lost to as well. And yeah, lots of average, lots of average. And it gets to the point here where you start to think, okay, this Spurs relegation thought is actually potentially possible, and Thomas Frank was looking in danger at this point. I think when did Igor Tudor come in? Um, Here. This is the Eagle Tudor run here. And yeah, it's just a lot of ass. Just hot, steaming, stinking ass. And this game, oh my god, this game was so funny. I remember watching this game. This game was incredible. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to dwell on their performance for too long because there's nothing really that I can add that hasn't been said already. The performance hasn't been good this season, not in slight. It had to improve. When Deserby come in from here, they have looked better. I'll be honest. They have looked better. I mean, we were on the beach at this point, so they beat us easily. Win away at Wolves, they made it difficult out of it. Um, but yeah, they got the job done when they needed to in the end underneath Zerbi, and they stayed up, which is why they haven't got a 0 out of 10. But the fact that they stayed up can't take away from how poor this season's actually been, and the fact that they're going to move on and probably build themselves back up after this. I mean, we can't forget how bad this season is, so how low of a baseline De Zerbi's working with. So, I mean, any improvement really, I guess, as a Spurs fan, you'd probably take. We're going to start with the outgoings here. There's really not a lot to say. These two needed to go. Højbjerg, Gill were not adding anything to the club. They had to get themselves out really. I mean, they're big losses on Gill specifically. I don't particularly remember how much Højbjerg come in for, but yeah, these are two players that had no impact. Son leaving, massive impact there. I mean, obviously, I know he didn't do a lot in his last season at the club, but I mean, that's a massive name. That's a Spurs legend in the dressing room. That's a big character that's gone, and they failed to replace on that. They failed to build on what his legacy was, what he left. Brennan Johnson needed to go. I think he was poor at the start of the season for Spurs. He wasn't getting the game time he needed. Spurs couldn't offer the game time that I think. I mean, I don't think he deserved the game time that Spurs had to offer. Um, gone to Palace and is flattered to deceive so far. So I think it's the right move, especially 40 million, recouping actually quite a lot of the money that they paid for Forest originally for him. But here's where it's a little bit now, Fridge. The incomings. I mean, I'm going to start with good. Kudus is a good signing. I was a big fan of him before he got injured. Vuskovic for 11 million looks to be a very, very solid centre back in the Bundesliga, and I think he's going to come in and do a job for Spurs next season, especially with Romero leaving, with the question marks around Van der Ven, stuff like that. Pelinho on loan, I thought was actually quite a good move. Um, pardon me. I think Pellegrini on loan for the value there for 5 million for a loan fee. It's not you're not going to bring him in on a permanent, you wouldn't think, but it's the kind of player that like he's come in and he's actually in big moments has stepped up quite a little bit for Spurs. He's done what was asked of him in quite big occasions, and like there's a few goals in particular scored against Wolves, scored against us, stuff like that that really sticks out in mind, and like that's the kind of thing that you want. Um, Moving on, Danzo hasn't been given the game time to prove himself. I mean, there's two good centre backs there, theoretically Romero and Van der Ven, so he shouldn't really have been needed. But I mean, with the injuries they've had, he's come in. He's not been too bad. I mean, he hasn't massively impressed me, but he's been all right. Gallagher, I'm not a fan. I'll be honest with you. I don't think Spurs needed Conor Gallagher, but if João Palhinha's going at the end of the season, I think next season that will come a lot better than it has done this year. And then Xavi Simmons. He's shown glimpses. Right, I don't hate Xavi Simmons as much as a lot of people don't like Xavi Simmons. I think there's a good player in there, and I think he's shown signs this season that going forward, especially under De Zerbi, a manager who kind of knows what he's doing, like that there's a decent potential for a good performing player in there, but it hasn't been consistent enough for the 65 million they paid. I mean, similar fees, Kudus looked a lot better. I know it's a new league, but before his injury, Kudus looked a lot more competent in that attack than Xavi Simmons did. But I think next season, get those two firing, and then you're looking at a winning combination there. Kyle Mwani's been shit. I'm going to be honest with you. I've not liked Kyle Mwani in, like, very much at all. Barely any points for me on the player podium list, and just not a guy that I think that deserved to take time away from someone like Mattis Tell. I mean, the fact that Kyle Mwani was taking game time away from Tell is pretty mad. I mean, they didn't need him like they had. Obviously, they signed Tell, who I think is a good player, and I think have more of a role going forward. Um, but yeah, when you've got obviously Solanke was out for a long time when stand up, but you got Richarlison there. I don't think you needed really Kolo Muani, especially when Solanke came back. You should have probably cancelled his loan in January because at that point he's taking game time away from better players, and he's dropped some really poor performances this season. So yeah, not a player that I'm a big fan of in slightest. I'm looking forward to seeing Tell next year. I think if you're given the game time, I think there's definitely a player in there that can like make really some work happen. I mean, you've seen in games this season, like give him a glimpse and he can actually like get at a man. I think a three of Tell on the left, Simmons in the middle, Kudus on the right is a very very potent front three. Quite young, quite dynamic, quite explosive, quite creatively, like quite good on the ball. Maybe the output isn't necessarily there, but I think for next season that's a good little core they've built there, and obviously Solanke up front. I think for now it's going to be a 4 out of 10. The negatives outweigh the positives as of right now. I think, however, this transfer window will age quite well in terms of the names brought in, your Vuskovics, your Simmons, your Tells, and then obviously people like Takai, Souza, who I haven't seen enough of to really make a verdict on, and then people like obviously, I mean, even as far as Mikey Moore going out on loan for a little bit, had a really good stint in Rangers. I think it was. I think the Rangers fans were a big fan of him while he was there. Alfie Devine getting a lot of game time. So I think going forward, this window will age a lot better than it has at the moment. But again, for now, it can only be a 4 out of 10, really. Thinking about Spurs next season, the fact that this man's in charge already is a positive. I think anyone would have been better than Frank and Tudor. I wasn't massively sold on De Zerbi. I don't know how good he'll be in the long run for Spurs, but I mean, you know, I think it could possibly become good. I mean, he seems to have worked some kind of magic on the team as it is, which I think is almost impressive considering the situation they were in earlier on. in the season, but I think having this man in the dugout is a positive already for next season. You're looking at outgoings now, and you think Vicario will go. There's going to be a lot happening at Spurs this season, I think. There's going to be a lot going on with the players coming in, coming out. Vicario will go. I mean, Dragushin, Romero will go. Van der Vender's a bit up in the air, I think, but I think these two are pretty nailed on to leave as it is. Basuma seems to be a bit of an outcast at the club now, 29, not lived up in his Brighton promise at all. Bentancur, I would sell, but I don't think will go. I don't know if Papsar will stay. I think he's a better player than he gets credit for, but I don't know if he'll get the game time that he'll want. Might be a January deal next season. Looking up here, you don't know about obviously Kulusevski because the state of his injuries have been ridiculous. Richarlison will go, and obviously Kolo Muani will leave at the end of his loan spell. Incomings, your new keeper and new centre back straight off the back is what you need if you're Spurs. Kinski, I've liked Kinski since his Atletico Madrid game, but if Vicario's going, you can't rely on Brandon Austin as your second choice goalkeeper. Centre halves, you need someone to replace Romero. It's ended kind of sourly with the way that he wasn't there for last game. I think with his red card record, with his injury record, I think Spurs fans will actually be not too sad to move him on. Outside of that, you're looking at a striker. With Richarlison going and Kolo Muani leaving as well, you're kind of left with just Solanke on his own. You kind of need a new striker to at least give some competition there. Either that or give Dane Scarlett a bit of a run as a backup striker, maybe. And then some depth. I think you need strength in depth. I mean, we see the state of these injuries here. Xavi Simons is out for a long time. Kudus will come back and Odegaard at the start of the season. But I think you need a bit more options in that like attacking role in the maybe a bit more maybe a bit of versatility. Someone who can, like Simmons here, can play across that front three, like across that midfield three behind the striker. Maybe someone like along them lines. But yeah, looking at the squad, obviously this is a team with a core that is massively better than the showing that the relegated teams are going. A midfielder, actually a deep midfield. If you, sorry, to go back to this, Pelini's going to go as well after his loan, so maybe a deep midfielder as an option would be good. But this is a core team that is so much better than the ones that have been relegated. So Spurs have already got a leg up over those lot already, obviously at the start of this season. I'm going to give their prospects for next year a 6 out of 10. Obviously, I can't be confident because of how they've come off the back of this year. Obviously, you'd expect them to bounce back, but we said that about them at the start of last season, so I'm going to be tentative with it and say a 6 out of 10. They've got a good list of names in this team, but they need to execute it well. They need to use these players well. I trust in De Zerbi for the short term to get it done. Going forward for 2, 3, 4 seasons, I don't know. I guess that's a bit up in the air in the nature of it, but for this next coming year, I think Spurs will be all right. And I'm going to give them a 6 out of 10 tentatively because obviously we don't know based on how they've played this year how it could go. So, yeah, I mean, if they fail to capitalise on the De Zerbi momentum, if they collapse again, then you're looking at a team that's really in trouble. And this is how they compare to everyone else. I put them below Wolves at the bottom at the moment in terms of performance because they have had the most embarrassing season overall. I think that's fair. Transfers, I'll put them top because they stayed up. I mean, if West Ham stayed up, they probably would have jumped above Spurs there, and Spurs have got a 0 out of 10 anyway. And the prospects, obviously, them being in the league massively helps them out in terms of prospects because obviously they're in the Premier League for next season. And they are now 2 points ahead of West Ham and 5 ahead of Wolves in terms of the overall list. This list is shaping up kind of how I imagine it would. Obviously, you'd think that the teams that finish higher would be higher. Obviously, when you get into the middle of the table, that won't be the case. It will change around due to circumstances a little bit. But yeah, this is how it's looking after 4 teams. I will do the Substack tomorrow as of recording, but later today as of posting. So thank you very much, boys, and have a good one.